The crystal chandelier above my head trembled with each burst of laughter from the private dining room, sending fractured light dancing across the marble floors like scattered diamonds. I pressed my back against the cold wall of the servants' corridor, balancing the tray of champagne flutes that cost more than my entire month's rent. The glass felt impossibly fragile between my calloused fingers that had scrubbed floors, changed diapers, and signed away my freedom 3 months ago. I wasn't supposed to be here tonight. Maria, the regular server for the VIP section, had called in sick, and Mr. Castellano needed someone, anyone, who could keep their mouth shut and their eyes down. I needed the extra $200. It was always about the money, wasn't it? The stack of medical bills on my kitchen counter, the eviction notice tucked inside my purse, the formula my daughter needed that I couldn't afford at the regular store. The heavy oak door swung open, releasing a wave of cigar smoke and expensive cologne that made my stomach clench. I straightened, forcing my expression into the blank, pleasant mask I'd perfected over years of invisible service. "Refills," a voice barked. Not a request. Never a request in this world. I slipped inside, keeping my gaze fixed on the amber liquid in the crystal decanters along the far wall. The room smelled of power, leather, tobacco, and something darker I couldn't name. Something that made the hair on my arms stand up beneath my crisp white shirt. "Gentlemen," a voice cut through the rumble of conversation, and the entire room fell silent. That voice. It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It carried the weight of absolute authority. Smooth as aged whiskey, and just as dangerous. I felt it slide down my spine like ice water, and my hands trembled enough that the glasses on my tray clinked together. "We'll continue this discussion tomorrow. Leave us." The command was met with immediate compliance. Chairs scraped against hardwood. Men in suits that cost more than my car, back when I had a car, filed past me without a glance. I was furniture, wallpaper, nothing. I moved along the perimeter of the room, replacing empty glasses, wiping down surfaces, trying to become even more invisible than usual. The silence pressed against my eardrums. I could hear my own heartbeat, the whisper of my shoes against the floor, the soft clink of glass against wood. "You're new." I froze. The voice came from behind me, closer than I'd realized anyone was. My reflection in the window showed him. A silhouette backlit by the fireplace, tall and broad-shouldered, face hidden in shadow. "Yes, sir. Just filling in tonight." My voice came out steady. "Small miracle. Look at me when I'm speaking to you." My throat constricted. Every instinct screamed to keep my eyes down, finish my work, get out. But that voice didn't make suggestions. It gave orders that your body obeyed before your brain caught up. I turned. The first thing I noticed was his hands, strong, elegant, wrapped around a crystal tumbler like he owned it. Like he owned everything. A ring on his right hand caught the firelight, some kind of family crest that probably had more history than I had hope. My gaze traveled up, past the charcoal suit that fit him like it had been born on his body, past the broad chest and shoulders that spoke of violence and control, to his face. And God help me, he was beautiful. Not handsome. Beautiful was the only word that fit. Sharp jawline shadowed with stubble, high cheekbones that could cut glass, and eyes, dark, intense, pinning me in place like a butterfly to a board. He couldn't have been older than 35, but those eyes held centuries of secrets and sins. "What's your name?" He took a step closer, then another. The space between us evaporated. "Sophie." It came out as barely a whisper. "Sophie Chen." His gaze traveled over my face with an intensity that made me feel naked, despite my conservative uniform. Something flickered in those dark eyes. Surprise? Recognition? It vanished before I could name it. "You're going to spill that." I looked down. The tray in my hands was tilting dangerously, champagne threatening to cascade onto the Persian rug beneath our feet. I steadied it, but my hands wouldn't stop shaking. "I'm sorry. Don't apologize." He plucked the tray from my grasp with one hand and set it on the nearest table without looking away from my face. "How old are you, Sophie Chen?" 26. The question felt like a test I didn't know the rules for. 26? he repeated, as if tasting the number. He circled me slowly, and I felt every inch of space he claimed. You have a child. It wasn't a question. Ice flooded my veins. How did you— The formula stain on your bag. He gestured toward my purse, tucked into the corner by the door where I'd dropped it. The circles under your eyes, the way you calculated the tip percentage when you set down those glasses. Muscle memory from counting every penny. Horror washed over me. I'd been so careful, so invisible. I have a daughter. Emma. She's 8 months old. The truth spilled out before I could stop it. I work 3 jobs. I don't want any trouble, I just need— The father? The question cracked like a whip. I flinched. Gone. The word tasted like ash. He left when he found out I was pregnant. Took my savings. Maxed out credit cards in my name. My jaw clenched. I haven't seen Marcus Chen in 9 months. Something dangerous flashed across his face. He moved closer still, close enough that I could smell him, sandalwood and smoke and something wild underneath, something that made my pulse spike in my throat. Marcus Chen. He said the name like a curse. Small-time dealer trying to move up in the world? My blood turned to slush. You know him? His smile was a terrible thing, beautiful and cruel and promising violence. He stole from me 6 months ago. $50,000 in product. I've been looking for him. The floor tilted beneath my feet. The chandelier's light seemed too bright, the room too small. I took a step back, then another, until my shoulders hit the wall. I don't know where he is. I swear. I haven't spoken to him since— I know. He closed the distance between us in 2 strides, planting one hand on the wall beside my head. Not touching me, but caging me in. You're not a liar, Sophie. I can always tell. Please. I hated the shake in my voice, hated the tears burning behind my eyes. I don't have anything to do with whatever he did. My daughter is the granddaughter of a thief, the daughter of a woman working herself to death in a city that will chew her up and spit her out. His free hand came up, and I tensed, but he only caught a strand of my hair that had escaped my bun, rubbing it between his fingers like he was testing its quality. Tell me, Sophie, how much do you owe? The question gutted me. 37,000. Medical bills from the pregnancy, credit card debt, and— I couldn't finish. Couldn't admit the full scope of my failure. And you're 3 months behind on rent. He finished for me. Your landlord filed eviction papers yesterday. How do you know that? The question came out sharp with panic. I know everything that happens in this city. He released my hair, his knuckles brushing my cheek, barely a touch, but it burned. I'm going to make you an offer, Sophie Chen. You can refuse, of course. You have free will. The way he said it made clear I had nothing of the sort. I need a wife. The words hung in the air between us, impossible and insane. What? A marriage, legal, binding, and temporary. His expression gave nothing away. I have business interests that require stability, a family, the appearance of domesticity. In return, your debts disappear. You and your daughter receive housing, security, and a substantial salary for your time. You can't be serious. I'm always serious. He stepped back, giving me space to breathe, though the air still felt too thick. 1 year. You play the role of my devoted wife. Attend events on my arm. Smile for photographs. After 12 months we divorce. You receive a settlement of $500,000. And you never see me again. $500,000, Emma's future, college, a house, security. Why me? My voice cracked. You could have anyone. Models, actresses. I don't want someone who loves the spotlight. I want someone invisible, someone desperate enough to say yes and smart enough to keep her mouth shut. His smile was a knife's edge. You're perfect. The compliment felt like an insult. I wrapped my arms around myself, trying to hold the pieces together. And if I refuse, then you collect your things and leave. I'll forget this conversation ever happened. He turned away, dismissing me, walking back toward the fireplace. Your landlord, however, will not forget the rent you owe. Your creditors will not forget the bills. And when Marcus surfaces, and he will, the people looking for him will remember he has a family. Threat wrapped in silk. I thought of Emma's laugh, Her tiny fingers curled around mine. The way she looked at me like I was her whole world. I thought of the formula I'd watered down to make it stretch. The heat I'd turned off to save money. The future I couldn't give her alone. I need time to think. You have 30 seconds. He didn't turn around. After that, the offer expires. My heart hammered against my ribs. This was insane. Illegal. Wrong. 20 seconds. But what choice did I have? Really? 10. Yes, the word ripped from my throat. Yes, I'll do it. He turned, and the satisfaction in his eyes made me feel like I'd just stepped into a trap I'd never escape. Excellent. He pulled a phone from his pocket, pressed a button. Bring the car around, and have legal draw up the contract. His gaze found mine again, pinning me in place. What's your daughter's name again? Emma. My voice shook. Emma Rose Chen. Emma Rose Volkov. He corrected, testing the sound. It has a better ring to it, don't you think? The room spun. Volkov. My name. Damien Volkov. He extended his hand, and I stared at it like a snake. I believe congratulations are in order, Sophie. You're about to become my wife. His hand was warm when I took it, his grip firm enough to feel like shackles closing around my wrist. The ring on his finger pressed cold against my skin. And in that moment, staring into those dark, dangerous eyes, I realized I'd just made a deal with the devil himself. The door opened behind me, and 2 men in dark suits entered. His security, I realized. Always watching. Always there. Take her home, Damien said, still holding my hand. Make sure she and the child are moved into the penthouse by morning. I want security on them 24/7. Wait. I tried to pull away, but his grip tightened. The contract is non-negotiable, Sophie. You're mine now. His thumb brushed across my knuckles, a gesture almost tender. And I protect what belongs to me. The penthouse smelled like money and danger. I stood in the center of the living room, if you could call it that, clutching Emma against my chest while she drooled onto my shoulder. Floor-to-ceiling windows stretched across the entire north wall, offering a view of the city that made my stomach drop. We were so high up that the cars below looked like toys, the people like ants. Everything I'd ever known existed somewhere down there in the smog and noise, and I was suddenly a world away. Ms. Chen? A woman's voice, crisp and professional, cut through my spiraling thoughts. I'm Helen, Mr. Volkov's head of household. Let me show you to your quarters. Helen was 60 if she was a day, with steel gray hair pulled into a perfect bun and eyes that missed nothing. She moved through the sprawling apartment with the efficiency of someone who'd been doing this for decades, her sensible shoes clicking against marble floors that probably cost more than my childhood home. Emma whimpered, and I bounced her automatically, following Helen down a hallway lined with abstract art that I was terrified to look at too closely in case I accidentally touched something priceless. This is the master suite, Helen said, opening double doors that revealed a room larger than my entire previous apartment. The bed was enormous, dressed in silk sheets the color of champagne. A chandelier hung overhead, smaller than the one in the dining room but no less intimidating. Through another doorway, I glimpsed a bathroom with a tub that could fit 4 people and fixtures that gleamed like liquid gold. I can't. My voice failed. This is too much. Mr. Volkov was very specific about your accommodations. Helen moved to a closet and slid open the door, revealing a space the size of my old bedroom. Your wardrobe will be delivered tomorrow. He's hired a stylist. You have appointments beginning at 9. Appointments? Hair, makeup, personal shopping. Helen checked something on her tablet. Mr. Volkov is hosting a charity gala on Saturday. You'll be attending as his fiancée. The engagement will be announced then. 3 days. I had 3 days to transform into someone who belonged in this world. Emma started crying in earnest now, her tiny face scrunching up in that way that meant she was hungry and tired and overwhelmed. I knew exactly how she felt. The nursery is through here, Helen said, leading me to an adjoining room. I stopped in the doorway, breath caught in my throat. The nursery was a dream. Soft cream walls with hand-painted murals of clouds and stars. A crib that looked like something from a fairy tale. All curved wood and delicate lace. Shelves lined with toys and books. A rocking chair positioned by the window, perfect for late-night feedings. Everything I'd ever wanted to give Emma and couldn't afford, laid out like a promise or a threat. Mr. Volkov had it prepared this morning, Helen said, and something in her tone made me look at her sharply. This morning? But he only asked me last night. Mr. Volkov doesn't ask Ms. Chen. He decides. Helen's expression softened slightly. There's a baby monitor connected to your room. The kitchen is stocked with formula, the brand you've been using, along with the premium organic alternative. Night nurse arrives at 8 if you need assistance. He knew the brand of formula. Had known before, I said yes. Had prepared all of this before I'd even made my choice. The trap had been set long before I walked into it. I fed Emma in the rocking chair, watching the city lights flicker below while my daughter's eyes grew heavy. She was so small, so innocent. She had no idea that I'd just sold our lives to a man who collected information like weapons and moved through the world like a predator. I'm doing this for you, I whispered against her downy hair. I promise, baby girl, this is all for you. But the words felt hollow in the cavernous room. After Emma fell asleep, I stood over her crib for a long time, memorizing the peace on her face. Then I forced myself to explore the rest of the suite, taking inventory of my new cage. The closet held a few items, silk pajamas in my size, a robe that probably cost more than my car insurance used to. The bathroom had every luxury product imaginable, all high-end brands I'd only seen in magazines. The shower had 6 different settings, and the towels were so soft they felt like sin against my work-roughened skin. I caught sight of myself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. Dark circles carved shadows beneath my eyes. My hair hung limp and lifeless. My uniform was wrinkled, stained with Emma's spit-up. I looked exactly like what I was, exhausted, desperate, broken. What did Damien Volkov see when he looked at me? The question haunted me as I stripped off my clothes and stepped into the shower, letting water hot enough to scald wash away the grime and fear, but some stains went deeper than skin. I was toweling off when I heard it. The soft click of the bedroom door opening. My heart stopped. I grabbed the robe, wrapping it around myself as I crept to the bathroom doorway. Through the gap, I could see him. Damien Volkov stood in the center of the bedroom, still dressed in his suit from earlier, hands in his pockets as he surveyed the space like a general inspecting conquered territory. "You're awake," he said without turning around. "How did you know I was here?" Now he turned, and his gaze traveled over me slowly enough to make heat crawl up my neck. The robe suddenly felt transparent under that look. "I own this building, Sophie. I know where everyone is at all times." He moved toward the nursery door, and I tensed, every maternal instinct screaming, but he only glanced inside, his expression unreadable. "She's beautiful. Don't wake her." The words came out sharper than I intended. His eyebrow arched. "I have 4 younger siblings. I know how to be quiet around babies." The personal information surprised me. I'd imagined him springing fully formed from some dark place, all power and control. The idea of him as a brother, as someone who'd once been young and possibly innocent, didn't compute. "Why are you here?" I pulled the robe tighter. "It's almost midnight. I wanted to ensure you were settling in." He walked to the windows, looking out at his city. "And to give you this." He pulled a small box from his pocket. Velvet, midnight blue. My stomach dropped. "Open it." My hands shook as I took the box, flipped it open. The ring inside stole my breath, a diamond so large it seemed obscene, surrounded by smaller stones that caught the light and threw it back like captured stars. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen, and the heaviest chain. "I can't wear this." I tried to hand it back. "Someone will rob me, or I'll lose it, or you'll wear it." He plucked the ring from the box and reached for my left hand. I tried to pull away, but his fingers closed around my wrist. Not hard, but immovable. "You're my fiancé now. You need to look the part." The ring slid onto my finger, a perfect fit. Of course it was. He'd probably measured my hand while I was unconscious, or had someone steal my information from some database I didn't know existed. "How did you know my size?" "I told you. I know everything." He kept holding my hand, thumb tracing circles on my palm that made my pulse jump. "The contract will be ready tomorrow. My lawyers will review it with you. Read it carefully, Sophie. Understand what you're agreeing to. I already agreed. Under duress. I want you to make this choice with full knowledge. His grip tightened slightly. I'm not a good man. You should know that walking in. But I keep my word. You fulfill your end of the bargain, and I'll fulfill mine. You'll be protected, provided for, and when it's over, you'll be wealthy enough to disappear and give your daughter any life you want. And what do you get out of this? His smile was dangerous. Legitimacy. My associates respect family men. My enemies think twice about moving against someone with a wife and child at home. And certain business interests in Russia require that I appear domesticated. So we're props, Emma and me. You're an investment. He released my hand, but the warmth of his touch lingered. One I intend to protect. Starting tomorrow, you'll have bodyguards. 2 men, armed, rotating shifts. They'll accompany you everywhere. That's insane. I don't need... Marcus Chen is still breathing, which means he's still a problem. Damien's voice went cold. He stole from me. He abandoned you and your daughter. When my people find him, and they will, he'll do anything to save himself, including using you as leverage. Fear trickled down my spine like ice water. You think he'd hurt us? I think desperate men do desperate things. He moved closer, and I backed up instinctively until my shoulders hit the wall beside the bathroom door. He followed, closing the distance until I could feel the heat radiating from his body. But he won't get the chance. No one will touch you, Sophie. No one will even look at you wrong. The possessiveness in his voice should have terrified me. Instead, something warm and dangerous unfurled in my chest. This is just a contract, I whispered. You don't actually care about what I care about is irrelevant. His hand came up, knuckles brushing my cheek in an echo of last night's touch. You're mine for the next year. That means your safety is my priority. Your comfort is my concern. Your daughter's well-being is my responsibility. Until the year is up. Until the year is up, he agreed. But something in his eyes suggested he was lying to both of us. A sound from the nursery broke the moment. Emma shifting in her sleep, making the small noises babies make when dreaming. Damien's gaze flickered toward the door, then back to me. Get some rest. Tomorrow will be challenging. He stepped back, giving me space to breathe. The stylist arrives at 9. Don't be late. He was almost to the door when I found my voice again. Damien? He paused, hand on the doorknob, looking back over his shoulder. Why didn't you just pay off my debts? Why the marriage? For a long moment he studied me, and I had the unsettling feeling he was deciding how much truth to give me. Because money alone wouldn't keep you safe, he said finally. My name will. My ring on your finger will. The world needs to know you belong to me, Sophie. It's the only way to protect you from what's coming. What's coming? But he was already gone, the door clicking shut behind him with a finality that made my chest tighten. I locked the door, knowing it was futile, knowing he probably had keys to every lock in this building, and checked on Emma one more time before climbing into the massive bed. The sheets were as soft as sin, the mattress like sleeping on a cloud, but I lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling and feeling the weight of the ring on my finger. A contract marriage to a mafia boss. 1 year of playing pretend, $500,000 and my freedom at the end. It should have been simple. A business transaction, nothing more. So why did the memory of his touch linger on my skin like a brand? Why did his words, "You're mine," echo in my head like a promise instead of a threat? And why, when I finally fell asleep as dawn painted the windows pink, did I dream of dark eyes and dangerous smiles and the feeling of falling with no one to catch me? The stylist's name was Antonio, and he looked at me like I was a particularly challenging restoration project. We have much work to do, he announced, circling me slowly while I stood in the center of the master bedroom wearing nothing but my old jeans and a t-shirt. Emma sat in her bouncer nearby, watching the spectacle with wide eyes. But the bone structure is good. Excellent, actually. And the eyes, very expressive. We can work with this. I felt like a car being appraised for parts. The next 6 hours were a blur of torture disguised as pampering. Antonio's team descended like a swarm of impeccably dressed locusts, hairstylists, makeup artists, a woman whose only job seemed to be analyzing my skin and declaring it dehydrated, but salvageable. They waxed, buffed, moisturized, and transformed while I sat frozen in a chair, trying not to think about how much all this must cost. Emma fussed twice, and each time I moved to get her, Helen appeared like magic with a bottle or a fresh diaper, handling my daughter with practiced efficiency that made me feel simultaneously grateful and useless. "The hair," Antonio declared around noon, running his fingers through the damp strands. "We'll keep the length, but add layers, dimension, make it look expensive instead of exhausted." "It is exhausted," I muttered. He laughed, a bright, genuine sound that made me like him despite everything. "Darling, we're all exhausted. The trick is making sure no one can tell." By 3 o'clock, I didn't recognize my reflection. My hair fell in glossy waves that caught the light, transformed from dull brown to rich mahogany with subtle highlights that Antonio swore were sun-kissed, not bottle. My skin glowed, whatever miracle products they'd slathered on me erasing the evidence of too many sleepless nights. My eyebrows had been shaped into elegant arches that opened up my entire face. "Now," Antonio said, gesturing to the racks of clothing that had appeared while I was being plucked and painted. "We dress you like the queen you're about to become." The clothes were beautiful and terrifying, designer labels I'd only seen on celebrities, fabrics that whispered against my skin, silk, cashmere, Italian leather. Antonio dressed me in outfit after outfit, photographing each one, adjusting, critiquing, until finally he stepped back with a satisfied smile. "Perfect. This one for the gala." I stared at myself in the full-length mirror. The dress was midnight blue, the color of Damien's ring box. It hugged my curves I didn't know I had under my baggy work clothes, before flowing to the floor in a waterfall of silk. The neckline plunged just enough to be daring without being scandalous. Diamonds glittered at my throat, borrowed from some collection that probably had its own security team. I looked like someone who belonged in Damien Volkov's world. I looked like a stranger. "He's going to lose his mind when he sees you," Antonio said, adjusting the strap on my shoulder. "It's just a contract," I said automatically. "He doesn't care what I look like." Antonio's expression suggested he knew better, but he just smiled and patted my hand. "Of course, darling, whatever you say." After Antonio and his team finally left, I changed back into my regular clothes, except they weren't in the closet anymore. Everything I'd worn this morning had vanished, replaced entirely by the new wardrobe. Even my comfortable jeans were gone. "Helen," I called, stepping into the hallway. She appeared within seconds. "Yes, Miss Chen?" "My clothes, my old clothes, where are they?" "Disposed of, per Mr. Volkov's instructions." Her tone suggested this was perfectly normal. "Your new wardrobe is complete. You'll find appropriate attire for every occasion." "Disposed of?" Like I could be erased and remade that easily. "I want them back." "I'm afraid that's not possible." "I don't care if it's possible." Anger flared hot in my chest, the first real emotion I'd felt all day besides fear. "Those were mine. You had no right." "I had every right." The voice came from behind me. I spun to find Damien leaning against the doorframe, arms crossed, watching me with those dark, unreadable eyes. He wore different clothes than last night, dark slacks and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, revealing forearms corded with muscle and marked with scars that told stories I probably didn't want to know. "Those clothes marked you as someone struggling," he said, pushing off the frame and walking toward me. "Someone vulnerable, someone people could exploit. You're not that person anymore. You don't get to decide who I am." "I decide everything." He stopped close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. "You signed a contract, Sophie. Your appearance reflects on me now. On my family. On my business. I won't have my wife looking like what? Like someone real? Someone who actually works for a living?" His jaw tightened. "Like someone who can be hurt." The words hung between us, heavy with meaning I couldn't quite parse. "Helen, give us the room," he said without looking away from me. I heard her footsteps retreat, the soft click of a door closing. We were alone in the hallway, close enough that I could see the gold flecks in his dark eyes, smell the sandalwood cologne that was quickly becoming familiar. "You're angry," he observed. "You threw away my things without asking. I replaced them with better." "That's not the point." Frustration made my voice shake. "You can't just erase who I was because it doesn't fit your image. I'm not a doll you can dress up and pose." His hand shot out, catching my chin and tilting my face up. The touch was firm, but not painful, commanding absolute attention. "Listen carefully," he said, voice dropping to something dangerously soft. "Every choice I make regarding you has a purpose. Those clothes would have marked you as an easy target. Weak, unprotected. In my world, weakness gets you killed." His thumb brushed my lower lip, and my breath caught. "I won't allow that. Do you understand?" I wanted to argue, wanted to rage against the cage he was building around me, gilded though it was, but something in his eyes stopped me. Something almost desperate beneath the control. "You're not protecting me," I whispered. "You're controlling me. They're the same thing in my world." He released my chin but didn't step back. "The gala is tomorrow night. Every major player in this city will be watching, judging, looking for weakness. I need you perfect, Sophie. Untouchable. Mine." That word again. Mine. "And after tomorrow? After tomorrow, the real work begins." His phone buzzed, and he pulled it from his pocket, frowning at the screen. "I have to go. Business." He was turning away when Emma's cry pierced the air. We both froze. The sound came again, urgent and upset. Not her usual fussing, but real distress. I ran. The nursery door was open, and Emma was red-faced in her crib, screaming in a way that made my heart lurch. I scooped her up, checking her over with practiced hands. Not hungry, diaper clean, no fever, just upset. "What's wrong, baby girl?" I bounced her, swaying the way she liked. "What's wrong?" "Let me see her." I turned to find Damien in the doorway, and my arms instinctively tightened around Emma. "I've got her." "Sophie." He held out his hands, and something in his expression, unexpected gentleness, made me hesitate. "Trust me." I didn't. But Emma was still crying, and exhaustion was winning over pride. I passed her over, watching carefully, ready to snatch her back at the first sign of discomfort. Damien held her with surprising confidence, supporting her head, adjusting his grip until she was tucked against his chest. He started walking, a slow circuit of the nursery, murmuring something low in what sounded like Russian. After a few seconds, Emma's cries quieted to hiccups. Then silence. I stared, stunned. "You said you have siblings," I managed. "4. I raised them after our parents died." He kept walking, kept swaying, eyes on Emma's face. The youngest was 6 months old. I was 19. The image that created a teenage Damien learning to change diapers and warm bottles while building a criminal empire was so incongruous with the dangerous man I knew that I couldn't reconcile it. "What happened to them? Your siblings?" "They're safe. Far from this life." His expression softened, something almost human breaking through the armor. I made sure of it. Emma's eyes drifted closed, her tiny hand fisting in his expensive shirt. He didn't seem to notice or care about the drool stain forming on his shoulder. "She likes you," I said quietly. "Children and animals, they always know." He looked up, catching me staring. "Know what?" "Who the monsters are." The words were meant as a joke, but they fell flat. His smile was sharp enough to cut. "I am a monster, Sophie. Don't ever forget that." He carried Emma to her crib, laying her down with practiced ease. "But I'm your monster now, and I protect what's mine." He left without another word, and I stood in the nursery long after his footsteps faded, trying to understand the man who could throw away my clothes like garbage but hold my daughter like she was precious china. That night, I lay in bed reading the contract his lawyers had delivered. 50 pages of legal jargon that boiled down to simple terms. I would act as his wife for 1 year, attend events, maintain the illusion of a happy marriage. In return, all my debts would be cleared. I would receive a monthly allowance of $10,000 and at the end, a settlement of $500,000. There were clauses about discretion. I couldn't discuss our arrangement with anyone. Clauses about behavior. I was expected to maintain certain standards of appearance and conduct. Clauses about Emma. He would be named her legal guardian for the duration of the marriage, for protection purposes. That clause made my stomach turn. But I understood it. If something happened to me, Emma would be cared for, protected. I was signing the last page when I heard it. Footsteps in the hallway outside my door. They paused. I held my breath, waiting for the knock that didn't come. After a long moment, the footsteps retreated. I touched the ring on my finger, heavy and cold in the darkness. Tomorrow, I would stand beside Damien Volkov and let him claim me in front of his entire world. Tomorrow, I would smile and play the role of the devoted fiancé, pretending I belonged in a life I could barely comprehend. Tomorrow, the contract would become real. But tonight, alone in the dark, I could still pretend I had a choice. The lie was almost comforting. The ballroom glittered like something from a fever dream. I stood at the top of the marble staircase, one hand gripping the banister hard enough to hurt, the other tucked into the crook of Damien's arm. Below us, hundreds of people milled about in designer gowns and $1,000 suits, champagne flutes catching the light from a dozen crystal chandeliers. The air hummed with wealth and power, and danger barely concealed beneath polite conversation. "Breathe," Damien murmured against my ear, his hand covering mine on his arm. "You look perfect." I didn't feel perfect. I felt like an imposter wearing someone else's skin, someone else's dress, someone else's life. The midnight blue silk whispered against my legs with each shallow breath. The diamonds at my throat felt like a noose. They're all staring. Let them. His fingers tightened on mine. They're supposed to. That's the point. A photographer appeared at the bottom of the stairs, camera raised. The flash made me flinch. "Smile, Sophie." Damien's voice held an edge of command. "Remember what we discussed." I forced my lips into something approximating happiness and let him guide me down the stairs. Each step felt like walking toward an execution. The crowd parted for us, conversations dying mid-sentence as we passed. I felt their eyes like brands on my skin, assessing, judging, calculating. "Mr. Volkov." A man materialized in front of us, silver-haired and sharp-eyed. "I wasn't expecting you to attend tonight." "Plans change, Senator." Damien's tone was pleasant, but his grip on me spoke of possession. "Allow me to introduce my fiancée, Sophie Chen." The senator's gaze raked over me with barely concealed surprise. "Fiancé?" I hadn't heard. "We're making it official tonight." Damien pulled me closer against his side, and I felt the coiled tension in his body. "Sophie, this is Senator Richter. He chairs the Appropriations Committee." I extended my hand, remembering Antonio's coaching: firm grip, eye contact. "Smile like you belong here." "It's lovely to meet you, Senator." Richter took my hand, holding it a beat too long. "Charming. Absolutely charming. Where did you two meet?" "She was working at Castellanos," Damien said smoothly. I saw her across the room and knew immediately she was different from anyone I'd ever met. The lie was so close to the truth it made my chest ache. "How romantic," Richter said, but his eyes were calculating. "And you're comfortable with Mr. Volkov's business interests?" The question was a test. I could feel Damien waiting, seeing how I'd handle it. "I'm comfortable with Damien," I said, meeting the senator's gaze steadily. His business is his own. Something like approval flickered across Richter's face. "Smart girl. I can see why he chose you." He released my hand. "Congratulations to you both. I'm sure we'll be seeing more of each other." As he walked away, I felt Damien's breath against my ear. Well done. The praise shouldn't have warmed me, but it did. The next hour was a parade of introductions. Business associates, politicians, society wives who smiled with their mouths while their eyes dissected every detail of my appearance. Damien kept me close, his hand a constant presence at the small of my back, on my hip, intertwining with mine. Each touch felt deliberate, performative, but my body responded anyway, hyper-aware of every point of contact. "You're doing well," he said during a rare moment alone, handing me a glass of champagne I had no intention of drinking. They're buying it. Buying what? That I'm in love with you? That you belong to me. His gaze dropped to my mouth. There's a difference. Before I could respond, a woman's voice cut through the air like a knife. Damien, darling, what a surprise. I turned to find a woman approaching. Tall, willowy, dressed in red silk that clung to her body like sin. She was beautiful in that effortless way that came from good genes and better surgeries. Her platinum hair swept up to reveal a neck circled in rubies. But it was her eyes that caught my attention. Ice blue and fixed on Damien with naked hunger. Natasha. Damien's tone went flat. I didn't realize you'd be here. Daddy insisted. She stopped in front of us, ignoring me completely. He said you'd want to discuss the merger. But it seems you've been busy with other matters. Finally, her gaze slid to me. The contempt in it was razor sharp. And who is this? My fiancé. Damien pulled me against him, his arm around my waist possessive enough to bruise. Sophie Chen. Sophie. This is Natasha Volkov. My cousin. The word should have been comforting. It wasn't. Fiancé? Natasha's laugh was musical and cruel. How sudden. We were just discussing your marriage prospects last month, Damien, and you swore you'd never. Things change. His voice could have frozen fire. Natasha's smile sharpened. Clearly. She finally looked at me properly, and I felt stripped bare under that gaze. You're very different from his usual type. Where did you say you were from? I didn't. I kept my voice level, remembering Antonio's coaching. Never let them see weakness. Sophie was working at Castellano's when we met, Damien said. Love at first sight. How democratic of you. Natasha's tone dripped condescension. And what does your family do, Sophie? Are they here tonight? The question was designed to humiliate. I felt Damien tense beside me. My family is Emma, I said quietly. My daughter. She's 8 months old. The silence that fell was deafening. Natasha's eyes widened, genuine shock breaking through her polished mask. You have a child? She looked at Damien like he'd lost his mind. You're marrying someone with another man's... Careful. The single word from Damien was soft as silk and deadly as poison. Very careful, Natasha. Something dangerous flickered in the air between them. Natasha's smile faltered. Of course. Congratulations to you both. She air-kissed near Damien's cheek, her eyes promising this conversation wasn't over. I'm sure Father will want to discuss this unexpected development. Family meeting next week? I'll have my assistant schedule it. After she glided away, I felt like I could breathe again, but Damien's arm stayed locked around my waist, his body radiating tension. She hates me, I said. She hates everyone. He guided me toward the balcony doors, including herself. The night air was cool against my overheated skin. We stepped out onto a terrace overlooking the city, and for the first time all evening, we were alone. I pulled away from Damien, putting space between us, needing to think without his proximity scrambling my thoughts. She wanted to marry you, I said. It wasn't a question. Our families had an arrangement, before I met you. He leaned against the railing, watching me. Natasha expected to become my wife, solidify the Volkov empire under one roof. And then I ruined everything. You saved me from a marriage that would have destroyed both of us. He pushed off the railing, closing the distance between us. Natasha and I would have killed each other within a year. But this is different. This is just a contract. Exactly. His hand came up, cupping my face with unexpected gentleness. No expectations. No complications. Just business. But the way he was looking at me didn't feel like business. The way his thumb traced my cheekbone. The way his gaze dropped to my mouth. That felt like something far more dangerous. Damien. We should go back inside. He dropped his hand, stepping away. They'll talk if we're gone too long. The rest of the evening blurred together. More introductions, more assessing stares, more lies about how we met and fell in love. Damien never left my side, his touch constant and possessive, playing the role of devoted fiancé with an intensity that felt almost real. It was nearly midnight when he finally led me toward the exit. My feet screamed in the designer heels, and exhaustion pulled at my bones. I wanted nothing more than to check on Emma and collapse into bed. We were almost to the door when a man stepped into our path. He was ordinary. Forgettable face, cheap suit, nervous energy. But something about him made Damien go absolutely still beside me, a predator scenting danger. "Mr. Volkov," the man said, his voice shaking slightly. "I have a message. From Marcus Chen." The name hit me like a physical blow. Marcus, Emma's father, the man who'd abandoned us, stolen from me, disappeared into the night. Damien's hand on my waist tightened to the point of pain. "Not here," he said, voice lethal. "Not now." He said you'd want to hear this. The man's gaze flickered to me, and I saw recognition in his eyes. Fear. He said to tell you he wants his family back, and he's willing to negotiate. The world tilted. My family. Marcus wanted Emma. Wanted me. "Get out." Damien's voice was barely above a whisper, but it carried the weight of absolute authority. Before I forget we're in public, the man fled. Damien's security materialized from the shadows. I hadn't even realized they were there, and he murmured instructions too low for me to hear. Then his attention was back on me, his hand gentle on my elbow despite the fury in his eyes. "We're leaving. Now." The car ride back to the penthouse was silent. Damien made phone calls in Russian, his voice sharp and angry, while I stared out the window and tried not to shake. Marcus was alive. Marcus wanted Emma. Marcus thought he could just appear after 9 months and reclaim what he'd thrown away. The elevator ride up felt like descending into hell instead of ascending to heaven. As soon as we were inside the penthouse, Damien rounded on me. "How much does he know about Emma?" I haven't spoken to him since. "Think, Sophie." He gripped my shoulders, not hard but firm enough to demand focus. "Did you tell anyone about her? Post pictures online? Anything that could have led him to her?" "No, I was careful. I didn't want him finding us. Then someone talked." He released me, pulling out his phone. "Someone in your old building, at your work. Someone gave him information. The implication hit me like ice water." "You think he's been watching us?" "I think he's desperate and stupid, which makes him dangerous." Damien's jaw clenched, but he won't get near you. Either of you. "I'll make sure of it." "How?" "He's Emma's father. Legally, he has rights. He has nothing." Damien closed the distance between us again, his hands framing my face, forcing me to look at him. "You're my fiancé. Emma is under my protection. The law is whatever I say it is, Sophie. Do you understand?" I should have been terrified, should have pulled away from this man who spoke of bending reality to his will. But all I felt was a desperate, shameful relief. "What are you going to do to him?" His smile was terrible. "Whatever I have to. Whatever keeps you safe." His thumb brushed my lower lip, and my breath caught. We stood frozen, his hands on my face, my heart hammering against my ribs. The air between us crackled with something that definitely wasn't part of the contract. "Damien," I whispered. We're not." "I know." But he didn't move away. "This is just business. Just a contract." "Just a contract," I echoed. Neither of us believed it anymore. 3 weeks after the gala, I woke to Emma's crying and the sound of breaking glass. My feet hit the floor before I was fully conscious, maternal instinct overriding everything else. I grabbed the monitor. Emma's room showed her safe in her crib, just fussing from a bad dream. The breaking glass had come from somewhere else in the penthouse. I pulled on a robe and crept toward the door, heart hammering. The security guards should have been outside. They were always outside, unless something had happened to them. The hallway was dark, emergency lighting casting everything in shades of blood and shadow. I heard voices, men arguing in Russian, the sharp crack of something hitting flesh. Then silence. "Sophie." Damien's voice, rough and urgent. I followed it to his office and stopped dead in the doorway. He sat behind his desk, shirt torn and bloodied, a cut above his eyebrow still seeping red. 2 of his men flanked him, looking equally damaged, and on the floor, zip-tied and gagged, was Marcus. I recognized him despite the split lip and blackening eye. 9 months hadn't changed him much, still handsome in that careless way that had first attracted me, still weak in the eyes. He saw me and started struggling against his restraints, making muffled sounds behind the gag. "Take her back to her room," Damien said to one of his men, not looking at me. "No." The word came out stronger than I expected. "What is he doing here? What does it look like?" Damien finally met my gaze, and the fury there stole my breath. "He tried to break into the building, got past the lobby by claiming to be your husband." "Ex-boyfriend," I corrected automatically. "We were never married." "Even better." Damien's smile was savage. "Means I don't have to worry about legal complications when I kill him." Marcus made a strangled sound. I should have felt something. Fear, sympathy, some remnant of whatever I'd once felt for this man. Instead, I felt nothing but cold, clear anger. "Remove the gag," I said. "I want to hear what he has to say." Damien studied me for a long moment, then nodded to one of his men. Marcus sucked in air as the gag came free, then immediately started talking. "Sophie, thank God. You have to get away from him. He's insane. He's a criminal." "He's the father of my child," I interrupted, voice flat. "And you are nothing." Marcus's eyes went wide. "What?" "No, I'm Emma's father. You gave up that right when you emptied my bank account and disappeared." I walked closer and he flinched. "Good. You gave up that right when you left me pregnant and alone, when you stole from me, when you chose whatever quick scheme you were running over your own daughter. I was going to come back. I was going to—" "Steal from the Volkov family?" Damien's voice cut like a blade. "Yes, we've established that. 50,000 in product. Did you really think you could fence it and disappear?" Marcus's face went gray. "It wasn't like that. I had debts. People after me. So you stole from someone more dangerous and hoped for the best." Damien stood, moving around the desk with predatory grace. "Then you heard Sophie was under my protection, and you got ideas. Thought maybe you could use her as leverage, get me to forgive the debt in exchange for walking away from her and the baby." It took a moment for the words to penetrate. When they did, I felt sick. "That was your negotiation?" I stared at Marcus. "You were going to sell me?" "It's not like that." "What's it like then?" My voice shook with rage. "Explain it to me, Marcus. Explain how you plan to profit off the woman you abandoned and the daughter you've never even met." "She's my daughter." Marcus struggled against his restraints. "I have rights. You have nothing." I crouched down until we were eye level. "Emma doesn't know you, doesn't need you. And in a few months, when my marriage to Damien is finalized, she'll have his last name, his protection, his future. Everything you couldn't give her. You can't just replace me. I already have." The words hung in the air. I stood, turning to Damien. His expression was unreadable, but something flickered in his dark eyes. Surprise, maybe, or something deeper. "What are you going to do with him?" I asked. "That depends." Damien's gaze never left mine. "What do you want me to do?" The question was a test. I understood that. He was giving me power here, letting me choose. And God help me, part of me wanted to say, make him disappear. Make him pay for every sleepless night, every watered-down bottle, every moment I'd spent terrified I couldn't provide for my daughter. But I wasn't that person. Not yet. "Let him go," I said finally. "But make sure he understands. If he ever comes near Emma or me again, you'll finish what you started tonight." Damien's smile was sharp with approval. "You heard her. Get him out of my sight, and make sure he gets the message." His men hauled Marcus to his feet. As they dragged him toward the door, he twisted back to look at me. "You're making a mistake, Sophie. He's a monster." "I know exactly what he is." I met Marcus's eyes coldly. "And I'd rather have a monster who protects my daughter than a coward who abandoned her." After they were gone, silence filled the office like smoke. Damien stood by the window, looking out at the city, his damaged reflection ghost-like in the glass. "You're bleeding," I said quietly. "It's nothing. Let me clean it." He turned, surprise crossing his features. "Sophie." "Sit down." For once, he obeyed. I found the first aid kit in his desk drawer, of course he had one, and pulled up a chair in front of him. The cut above his eyebrow wasn't deep, but it needed attention. I cleaned it carefully, hyper-aware of how close we were, how his hands had settled on my hips like they belonged there. "You should have let me kill him," Damien said softly. "He'll come back. Men like that always do." Maybe. But Emma deserves better than having her father's blood on her mother's hands. I pressed a butterfly bandage over the cut. Even if he'll never be her father in any way that matters. And what am I to her? His hands tightened on my hips. What am I to you? The question stole the air from my lungs. I sat back, first aid supplies forgotten, trapped in his dark gaze. I don't know, I whispered. This was supposed to be simple. A contract. A year and then freedom. Nothing about this is simple anymore. His hand came up, cupping my face with a gentleness that contradicted everything he was. I've been trying to convince myself this is still business, that you're still just a convenient solution to a problem. But tonight, when I heard he'd gotten into the building, when I thought he might have reached you, he stopped, jaw clenching. Damien, I wanted to destroy him, not because he stole from me, not because he threatened my business interests, because he hurt you, because he left you vulnerable and afraid, and the thought of anyone making you feel that way again makes me want to burn the world down. His confession hung between us, raw and dangerous. That's not part of the contract, I managed. No. His thumb brushed my cheekbone. It's not. We agreed. 1 year. Then we walk away. I know what we agreed. He pulled me closer, until I was nearly in his lap, until I could feel his heartbeat against my chest. Tell me you don't feel this. Tell me I'm alone in this insanity. I should have lied. Should have protected us both from whatever this was becoming, but I was so tired of pretending. You're not alone, I whispered. He kissed me. It wasn't gentle or tentative. It was possession and desperation, and 3 weeks of tension finally snapping. His hands tangled in my hair. My fingers clutched his torn shirt, and I kissed him back like I was drowning, and he was air. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his forehead rested against mine. This changes everything, he said. I know. The contract. I don't care about the contract. The words felt like jumping off a cliff. I care about Emma being safe, about having a future that doesn't involve choosing between rent and food. About me? His voice was rough. Yes, I admitted. About you, even though you're dangerous and controlling and you threw away all my clothes. He laughed, the sound startled and genuine. You're never going to forgive me for that, are you? Probably not. I pulled back enough to look at him properly. But I understand why you did it. You were protecting me the only way you know how. By controlling everything around you. By controlling everything around me, I agreed. It's infuriating and arrogant and you're falling for me anyway. It wasn't a question. I should have denied it. Instead, I kissed him again, softer this time, letting it be an answer. 6 months later, I stood in the nursery watching Emma take her first steps. She wobbled between the coffee table and Damien's outstretched hands, giggling every time she fell on her padded bottom. Come on, princess, Damien encouraged, crouching down. You can do it. Emma launched herself forward, taking 3 shaky steps before tumbling into his arms. His face lit up with pure joy as he caught her, spinning her around until she shrieked with laughter. Did you see that? He looked at me, grin boyish and beautiful. She walked. I saw. My heart felt too full for my chest. You're going to spoil her. That's the plan. He settled Emma on his hip, and she immediately grabbed his nose, making him laugh. The contract was supposed to end in 6 months. We'd already torn it up. The wedding had been real. A small ceremony with Damien's siblings flown in from wherever he'd hidden them. Helen crying in the front row, and Emma in a tiny white dress as flower girl. I'd worn ivory instead of blue, and when Damien had said I do, his eyes had held promises that had nothing to do with business arrangements. The merger with the Petrov family had gone through. Damien's legitimacy as a married man with a child had smoothed the way. Natasha had been furious, but she'd attended the wedding with a smile that promised future retribution. I'd smiled back, secure in the knowledge that Damien's protection was absolute. Marcus had disappeared to another city. Damien's lawyers had ensured he'd signed away all parental rights before he left. Emma would grow up knowing Damien as her father. the man who'd taught her to walk, who read her stories in Russian and English, who'd kill anyone who threatened her. "What are you thinking about?" Damien asked, pulling me from my thoughts. "How different everything is from a year ago." "Better?" I crossed the room, wrapping my arms around both of them, terrifying and dangerous and completely insane. "But yes, better. I love you," he said, simple and direct. "I know I'm supposed to wait for you to say it first, but I'm not good at waiting." I noticed. I kissed him, careful of Emma squirming between us. "I love you too, even though you're possessive and jealous and way too protective." "Someone tried to take a picture of Emma at the park yesterday," he interrupted. "I had them arrested. See? Way too protective." But I was smiling. "What were the charges?" "I'm rich enough that the charges don't matter." He shifted Emma to one arm so he could pull me closer with the other. "No one photographs my daughter without permission. No one approaches my wife without clearance. And anyone who looks at either of you wrong learns very quickly why crossing a Volkov is a fatal mistake. You're insane." "About you? Absolutely." His kiss was possessive, claiming. "You're mine, Sophie Volkov. You and Emma both. No contract, no time limit, just mine." "Yours," I agreed, letting myself sink into his arms. "But that means you're mine too. Always have been." His smile turned wicked. "From the moment you spilled champagne on that tray and looked at me like you wanted to disappear, I knew right then you were going to change everything." "Liar. You wanted a convenient wife for business. I wanted you. The business was just an excuse." He kissed my forehead, then Emma's. "Best contract I ever signed, even if we did violate every clause." Emma yawned, rubbing her eyes with tiny fists. I took her from Damien, settling into the rocking chair for her afternoon nap. He stood watching us, leaning against the doorframe with an expression I'd never thought to see on his face. Peace. "What?" I asked softly, rocking Emma as her eyes drifted closed, just thinking how close I came to missing this. "If Marcus hadn't stolen from me, if you hadn't needed money, if any of 100 variables had been different, I would have married Natasha out of obligation, you would have struggled alone, and Emma would have grown up without ever knowing she had a father who would die for her. Fate," I said. "Luck." "Love," I corrected. He crossed the room, kneeling beside the rocking chair and taking my free hand. The ring on my finger caught the light. Not the massive diamond from the contract, but the simple platinum band he'd given me at our real wedding. Engraved inside were 3 words in Russian that he'd translated with a smile. "My heart. Always." "Love," he agreed, bringing my hand to his lips. "The most dangerous thing I've ever felt. More terrifying than any enemy, more consuming than any ambition. You've ruined me, Sophie Volkov." "Good," I said, smiling down at him. "You ruined me first." Emma slept between us, safe and loved, and completely unaware that her life had begun as a contract and transformed into something real. Something neither of her parents had planned for, but both would kill to protect. Outside, the city sprawled beneath us, dangerous and beautiful and full of threats that Damien's money and power kept at bay. But inside this room, with my daughter asleep in my arms and my husband's hand in mine, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Safe. Loved. Home. The contract marriage had been just business, until jealousy made it real, until possession became protection, until the monster in the expensive suit looked at me like I was his salvation instead of his obligation. And somewhere in the transformation from desperation to devotion, I'd stopped being afraid of the cage he'd built around me. Because I'd finally realized the truth. Damien Volkov wasn't my captor. He was my choice. And I